Just make sure your microphone is on. Okay.
Am I on? There we go. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I would like to discuss two amendments that I've offered to the National Defense Authorization Act. My first amendment, Amendment 41, would strike the section of the bill that makes women eligible for the draft. Drafting American wives, mothers, daughters for mandatory military service unnecessarily politicizes military service and would jeopardize the national security of this nation. The purpose of the draft is to rapidly replace combat losses in extreme national emergencies. It has always been about meeting the needs of the armed forces as fast as possible with the best replacements as possible. Men are, by their very nature, the best suited to meet these demands when necessary. The effort to draft America's daughters into frontline combat duty will undermine the military's combat prowess, lead to greater wartime casualties, and take away from the defense capacity. Men and women are not physically the same, and women do not possess an equal opportunity to survive on the battlefield in direct combat with battle-hardened men. And I can say that as a woman who can deadlift 300 pounds, can do more pull-ups than anyone else in this room, and run faster than any of you. You see, women are equal to men in many ways, but when we put women on the battlefield unnecessarily, it changes the dynamics of how a defense should operate, how a military should operate. And let me explain some of the reasons why this is an issue. You see, right now, we have 17 million 18 to 25-year-old men who are currently registered in the select services. That's 17 million already registered, all males. Right now, we have 1.3 million active duty military members serving. We have 800,000 reservists. There is no necessary reason to draft women with those numbers. Again, 17 million who are registered, 18 to 25-year-old men. Why would we draft young women who are 18 to 25 years old? There's no reason for it. We are a nation with a large population. We are not a small nation like Israel, who has to do that simply because they don't have the population to meet the need to form a military. Another thing that this panel, I hope, will take into consideration is we should learn how to spend our American taxpayers' dollars wisely. Drafting women will force the military to have to spend money in ways they didn't before. When you think about a Navy ship, there has to be places for women to sleep and men to sleep, and they have to be separate. There has to be restrooms and many facilities to keep separate for men and women. At least I would hope so, although things seem to be changing in that regard lately. But there's a cost concerned in that. There's also a cost concern in women's health care. Fortunately, women in the military receive great health care, but if we start drafting women and have just as many women in the military one day that we have as men, that's another cost we have to take into consideration. And then I'll tell you a quick story, and I thought this was really interesting. This is from actually April 5th, 2003. This is from a story from a ship in the Persian Gulf aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. Now, here's what was quite interesting to me, is the captain said, since the Lincoln pulled out of its home port in Everett, Washington on July 20th, about 20 crew members have been sent home pregnant. 7 in the first few weeks. 7 in the first few weeks. They had to send 20 of them home just in the start. So there are issues when you're putting just as many women into the military as men, especially when there's no need to do it when we already have 17 million 18 to 25-year-old men currently registered in the select services. What is the point of drafting our daughters? And I can say that as a mother of 2 daughters that would be eligible for a military draft at their ages 23 and 21. I assure you, this mother does not want her daughters drafted into the military, but I would support them if they chose to join. So my amendment preserves the part of Section 513 and recognizes the solemnity of the military service, maintenance of the health of the selective service systems, and due process rights. I applaud the members who are leading this fight to protect women and the integrity of our armed forces, and I urge my colleagues to join me. The second amendment, Amendment 831, I offered with Representative Matt Gaetz, would add a section urging the resignation of Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and General Mark Milley. My amendment expresses that it's the sense of Congress that these men are unfit to service in their positions as Secretary of Defense and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staffs. General Milley's conduct lately shows exactly why this amendment is necessary, but unfortunate. General Mark Milley promised to warn his Chinese counterpart ahead of time in case of the Trump administration prepared a military strike against China. If that is true, General Mark Milley must be investigated, removed, and court-martialed. In two secret phone calls that took place October 30th, 2020, 4 days before the presidential election, and January 8th, 2 days after the Capitol riot, Milley allegedly assured his Chinese counterpart that the U.S. would not strike, and he would warn the Chinese in case of an attack. This man was not elected and was not president of the United States. He was not the commander-in-chief. A man who's so flustered by military tensions that he commits treason obviously does not have the temperance to lead an army. Milley clearly gave aid and comfort to America's principal adversary, the Chinese Communist Party. He must resign. I hope that my colleagues will recognize the need for Congress to demand his resignation. Thank you very much.
Before I go to Mr. Griffith, I would like to call up Mr. Graves from Louisiana to join the panel. I'm not going to go to him. I'm just calling you up officially. So I'm going to go now to Mr. Griffith. Yeah.
Thank you very